to get a baseline for what the rifle weighs now in its current configuration. This scale is an A&D. It's an old scale I had laying around. I've already zeroed it to the table. We are sitting at 22.38. That's what we got to work with here. Alright, first things first. We're going to take off the send-it level, electronic send-it level. I'm going to place this over on the side here. And next, we're going to have to access the action screws. One is here, and the other one is behind this barricade block. So we'll get to Now that we got the action screws loose, the front and rear, we can now separate the chassis from the barrel action. Now, one thing I do want to mention, if any of you are running a competition KRG chassis and you want to run a Timney, any kind of Timney trigger, you will have to end up dremeling a little bit right here for the safety catch. Just took a small Dremel in a burr bit and just kind of carved away some of this inside metal here to allow it for the safety to fully engage. So if you're running a KRG with the competition, again, not the C4, this is just the competition style, and you are running some sort of Timney trigger, you will have to end up shaving some of this down just so that the safety will engage. I had a buddy who shoots competitive. He had a MDT chassis or a KRG, I can't remember which one exactly, and he had an older model Sturgeon. Remington 700 clone, and he put it in his chassis, and he had it in the chassis for a while, shot it a couple of times. He was chasing a zero, so he'd shoot it, get a good zero, leave for the day, come back a couple weeks later, recheck zero, and it would always shift. The zero would always shift, and he checked everything. He checked the barrel, he checked his loads, he checked everything on the gun, couldn't figure it out. Well, what we ended up doing was pulling the barreled action out. And we had found that the recoil lug was a different size than what he had led to believe or it was manufactured for. So basically, it wasn't touching the inside of the chassis. Every time the gun would recoil, the action screws would take that brunt force. So it would change his zero every time he took a, three ring shot. And we took measurements between the front face of the recoil lug to the center line of the front action screw, and then we measured it on the chassis, and it was quite a ways off. Not enough to really notice it with the naked eye, but enough to where it would cause accuracy problems downrange. So what we ended up doing was took the measurement several times, and then looked at the measurement on the chassis, and we ended up betting this to verify that where the recoil lug sits here compared to the action screw, that the recoil lug actually sits back and flush up against this piece in the chassis. So ever since I saw that, and him, frankly, now we always take a measurement from the back to the front action screw and verify. Right, we assume everything's made to spec, but things happen. Machines, people make mistakes. Machines make mistakes because of human error input factored on them. Little thing to check off Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to check the measurement from here to the front action screw, and I'm going to check it on two things. I'm going to check it on the KRG here, and then I'm going to also check it on the MDT. Now, what do you do if you find that the measurements are not lining up or they're not the same? Well, again, what we did was we bedded the chassis. We just bedded it. Marine Tex is what we use. We bedded it, and then the problem went away. But with these chassis being machined, and most of them are supposed to fit the 700R or the 700 clone, like the KRG has a radius bedding block, whereas the MDT is more of a V-shaped. I'm not going to get into which one's better, vice versa. I've got my picks on that, but I will say that once the C4 comes out from the KRG and it's available, I would like to get that and compare it between the MDT and KRG, because these are two chassis that I truly love, and I feel great behind them. Alright, so again, what we're going to do is we're going to just take a rough estimate from, again, the back side of the recoil lug to probably the inner lip here of the front action screw. Again, that doesn't have to be super down to the 100,000ths of an inch. It just has to be close. My buddy's rifle, it was more than an 1/8 of an inch off. Again, it's just something to check, just the ease of mind here. How I'm going to do it is I'm going to zero my calibers, and I'm going to take a crude measurement here in the back to just on the inside here, the lip there. So 0.7940. So 0.7940. Okay. So I'm going to lock this down. Now that I have that locked down, I take this barreled action. Out of the way. We're going to grab our chassis here. And we're going to kind of just hold this up here and kind of verify that it is good. Now, if you see this KRG, the hole spacing here is oblong, and that's so you have freedom of adjustment as the screw goes in. That way it will slide, you know, a little more than 1/8 of an inch either way. So that way, if it is a little off, you can loosen these, the front and the rear, and put pressure back and tighten the front action screw first and then the rear, and keep going back and forth till it's tight and then torque it to spec. What that would do is allow the recoil lug to contact the front of the backbone here, and you're all good. So checking it once more here, we are good. So if you look closely, here to here, plenty of space. We're good there. No problems, no drama. Next up, MDT. And again, as you can see here, they've also oblong their holes for the front and the rear for that same adjustability type. So here we are going to measure from here to here, and yes, we are good. We are good. All right. Yep, we're good. So it shouldn't be an issue. However, if it does become an issue, I will come back and I will recheck with a more precise tool. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the bipod on the chassis. I'm going to flip the chassis over. Verify there's no dirt or any kind of weird material inside of where the recoil lug goes. There's nothing in the holes, nothing in this rear hole, nothing that's going to catch. Now if you see here, they already have the little cutout for the Trigger Tech, Safety, and others that use the same dimensions. So no drama there. And I'm sure the new C4 updated that on their backbone system. Alright, just make sure before you place the barrel action in the chassis, you want to clean everything off. Make sure there's nothing on the other side of the barrel. If you shoot in rain, it's a good habit that after every match in wet conditions, pull the barreled action out, dry everything, the barreled action and inside the chassis, because you don't want moisture to build up underneath here. It could cause problems as well, and also rust if it's not coated. Just something to keep in mind. We'll go ahead and place the internal weights inside this track here. Two things that will do: one, add weight to balance out the rifle and add strength, rigidity to the chassis itself. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, working from the back to the front. Screws are going to be tightened down, and of course I've got the blue Loctite on them because I really don't plan on these coming back out. So next we're going to put in the action screws. MDT provides two along with washers, and I put just a tab of grease on them just so they don't seize up inside there. Now, what I was talking about earlier, you can see how the action screws are loose right now, almost about 1/8 of an inch. So when you tighten up your action screws, you want to make sure that when you tighten the back, then the front, then the back, then the front again, you keep positive pressure towards the rear. Alright, what I like to do is loosen the action screws up just a tad, tighten them up just a tad. And bounce. Gravity, pull the barrel down against that recoil lug, against that shelf on the chassis. So you'll keep tension down, and I'll also grab the scope mount and kind of keep rearward pressure on it, and then slowly tighten the rear and then the front, alternating back and forth. Then I'll torque them down to 60 inch-pounds. well, that's the installation of the barreled action into the new MDT chassis. I've already have everything set up, length of pull, cheek riser, and scope where I need it. Next video I think I'm going to go over is how to balance the rifle and why that's important. So stick around or stay tuned. Thanks, guys.